This is LG415, week 2. This is a case study review. Everything that's going to be presented in this video applies to both case studies and is going to be a repeat of the case study number 1 from week 1 that students are required to follow and maintain a specific level of requirements uh, for all case studies throughout the course. Okay. So let's look at the second case study, which this is a typo. This should be page 146, which is Rosie's Pizzeria. Okay, the instructions ask you or tell you to read and answer all case study questions in the text. The from module 1, if you recall from case study number 1, there are specific requirements. These are not repeated and should have been. This is being addressed in the redesign, but all of these are going to be included in the redesign, but are required for all case studies throughout the course. Case studies have to be single-spaced Word documents, 1 to 2 pages in length. You need to identify potential causes for the issues that are there, propose solutions, and project what you think would be the outcome of that. Okay, so make sure that you display critical thinking skills in these case studies, and that you follow on and follow these rules from week 1. Okay, so again, let's go to case study 2, Rosie's Pizzeria. The scenario is given in Rosie's Pizzeria about a privately held chain with a number of locations. And what they're doing, they gives you some specific data in here that will generate some ideas, and you can identify problems. Okay, and a lot of the things are over here in our satisfaction survey. Okay, in our case study, there are 4 things that are listed that are primary uh, areas of concern that were projected from surveys from the customers in our scenario. So we have these that says here are some responses from customers of current competitors and potential competitors in other markets. So we're standing in line, hard concrete floors, long wait times, uh, cold wind blasting through the doors, that kind of thing. Dirty rags, okay, around the table. Manager said that's not a gnat, black pepper. Basically, the manager was rather surly towards customers, and going to the bathroom. Bathroom is an issue. So the questions for the discussion are this: what were the customers actually saying in those 4 responses? Okay, and translate them into customer requirements using actionable business language. In other words, what are they telling you that you can do and measure to see how we can perform things? So that's why I'm saying translate them into customer requirements. So this is the voice of the customer. So standing on a concrete floor, wind blowing across my ankles, waiting and sitting out of time to be called, that translates into wait time. So I can look at that, looking at maybe potential layouts to get people in out of the cold, or maybe have a airlock between the exterior door and the interior entrance into the restaurant. There could be a vestibule, but then we have to also consider physical limitations that are there. Okay, but installing an airlock or breezeway or some sort of barrier between the external door and where the customers are actually entering into the restaurant to be seated and seeing the seating manager or whatever, whoever's there. There are ways we can combat that, and that's transferring voice of the customer into a requirement. Okay, wait times especially. We can measure wait times. So how can we eliminate long wait times? Okay, and what needs to be done in order to set those metrics up to measure how well we're doing in getting people from the external part of the restaurant into a seating area. Okay, we have to think about all those things. Okay, the second one, I saw a dirty rag being slopped around a dirty table. Well, again, that's based on cleanliness and safety features and health issues. So how can we address that part of it? Well, we want to make sure that dirty rags are not used, that they're recycled, okay, and that they cleanup crews are using properly sanitized and proper sanitation type things, and we can measure that, right? How often we're going to change the rags out, how often we're going to change the solutions out for cleaning of the tables and whatnot. What are our requirements for meeting health standards within the restaurant for cleanliness, okay, in the dining area? That is a written requirement that we can easily translate the customer complaints or voice the customer to. Uh, the manager is a big difficult part. How can we, now this comes back to Deming, okay, so what can we do? And remember in the lecture we talked about customer complaints, conflict resolution. How can those uh, methodologies or philosophy help with the manager? Okay, and what kind of things we need to do to initiate, to instill into our processes, into our culture within the restaurant, to ensure that the manager addresses all complaints equally and treats the customer as the most important person on the planet. Okay, so we have to address those. What can you do to measure that? What can you do to combat that? And how can you, what kind of solutions can you employ in all of these settings, not just this one, but all of the settings? That what kind of solutions can you employ to eliminate or reduce those complaints and to make things better? And the last one, about the bathroom, the reaching, grabbing everything, and trying to keep them from touching anything because the bathroom is so dirty. Again, that's a health issue. What do we need to do to address to make sure that the bathrooms are maintained at a specific health level or safety level? And that's also part of the requirement, right? We can look at those things and we can measure them. So we're translating customer requirements or customer voice of the customer into actionable items that we can do to improve the overall ambiance and the service that they're receiving at the restaurant, plus all the aesthetic, what they're expecting, right? The Kano model, we're reviewing that again. Okay, in addition to response to question one, the voice of the customer identifies following customer requirement: food and drinks at their proper temperature. Okay, again, these things that they're listing here in problem number two is part of your narrative. This can be your, the second part of your, or somewhere in the middle. By the way, this assessment and this critical analysis should be at least a page and a half, because you have to address all these issues. What can you do to ensure temperature, fresh food, meeting needs of adult guests, families, that kind of thing? How we can set these up, what needs to be put in place, what measurements can we use to measure these? Okay, very simply, temperatures in the refrigerator, temperatures coming off the cooking line, right out of the oven, making sure that we serve in a specific amount of time. That way, the temperature maintains between a range of values that customers are expecting and that meet requirements for the health services, right? Certain temperatures have to be maintained, so we have to make sure that we put things out there in enough time to where it's coming out there in a satisfactory fashion at a well reasoned temperature. That way they don't burn themselves, if they're eating the food, but it's maintained at a temperature to where it eliminates the possibility for any kind of bacteria or any kind of other health issues that may arise. So you can address the seating areas and things like that. What can you do with a seating area to make it better? Make it a better arrangement for customers to move in and out and to get people seated, and for group parties or group activities, things like that. So that's what you have to think about in part two, and combine all of that into a single critical analysis. The number three, okay, is basically if you to go out there and find out something from a customer and see what you can do to improve things. You can use something inside your office if you already have satisfaction surveys, or just ask your neighbor, what can I do to make your job easier? Okay, what do I need to improve on to make your job faster, easier, more productive? Okay, that's the kind of thing we're looking for, and you just incorporate that into your analysis. Case study number three, flipping over to page 199, which is Carlo's quick service restaurant. Notice how the restaurant theme is being carried out in both of these. The same things apply that we just talked about. You're asking high attrition rates. Okay, so what can we do? Remember about employee motivation, employee buy-in, developing a high-performing workforce. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for to answer these questions. Okay, what can you do to achieve and maintain high attrition? What can you do to establish a high performance organization and high performance workforce? And what can you do to make sure that anything that those changes that you're suggesting, how do you measure things out? What are the outcomes of those? How can you extend those and make those long term, right? Remember that training only has a finite life cycle. It's part of the deal. It's part of your solution probably, but what is required besides the training? What do we need to do outside the initial training to make sure that the training is effective and forceful, I should say, and reaping benefits long term? That's what I'm looking for in both case studies. Okay, because this training is going to be part of your solution sets more than likely. So what can you do beyond the training to make sure that we can continue these processes and make sure we have high level and high performing workforces and work teams for a long time? What can we do to establish that sustainability for the future? How can the second part, how can Carlos manager or the corporate office improve employee involvement and engagement? Again, incentives, recognition, promotions, skill progression training, things of that nature is what should be in that section. But apply it to Carla, apply it to Rosie's Pizzeria if you want to. All that stuff is all integrated into making sure that we're actually making a high performance team, and we're developing an overall workforce and a culture that drives excellence. Okay, so that's your focus on this case study, and we have other areas to focus on for Rosie's Pizzeria. So make sure you're differentiating between those two, and you can combine some aspects, okay, and some thoughts, but focus on the chapter and the material in the chapter for each case study, and address those issues and be thorough. Remember, you want to identify potential causes, propose solutions, and tell me what kind of outcomes you can expect from those solutions. You have to be very specific, and you have to be detailed and think critically about how you would go in and change these two case study business areas to identify areas of improvement. How in Rosie's Pizzeria we can establish metrics for customer satisfaction, levels of requirements for food and beverage. And Carla, how can we keep people from leaving, right? We want to make sure that we can build a high quality workforce, an empowered workforce. What can we do to entice people to stay? What do we need to do to alleviate the attrition rate? And what can we do to get more people involved? How we get them more involved to generate ideas and things along those lines. So those are the two areas of focus that we need to do separately on each case. There are going to be some overlap, like maybe with training and things like that, but that's fine. But just make sure you identify those, what potential causes in each, solutions for each case, and what you expect for as an outcome of those solutions, and what can we do to sustain them over time. Okay, again, both of these case studies are going to be at least a page and a half in length. Make sure you follow the requirements from case study number 1. Okay, make sure you follow these requirements right here. Okay, make sure of that. Okay, in fact, I think I'll just copy these over and make sure they're in all the case studies from here on out. Okay, so thank you very much, and that ends the case study review for week number 2.